Good morning to everybody. Welcome to the first session of the Complete Management course for Planning Directors. I'm Paul Zucker, going to be your instructor for these 6 sessions if you're here for all 6. I always like to start with a song because I want to encourage you. This is a learning event. So this is a song called I'm Just an Old Chunk of Coal, and we're going to try to help turn you into diamonds. So if you'll just bear with me. I'm just an old chunk of coal. I'm gonna be a diamond someday. I'm gonna grow and glow till I'm so blue. I'm perfect, gonna put a smile on everybody's face. I'm gonna kneel and pray every day, 'cause I should be conveyed along the way. I'm just an old chunk of coal, no. I'm gonna be a diamond someday. I'm gonna learn the best way to walk. Gonna search and find a better way to talk. I'm gonna spit and polish my old rough and south till I get rid of every single flaw. I'm gonna be the world's best friend. Gonna go around shaking everybody's hand. I'm gonna be the cotton picking range of the age. I'm gonna be a diamond someday. I'm just an old chunk of coal. I'm gonna be a diamond someday. Hey, for you ukulele fans taking this course, let me know if you're playing the ukulele, and we'll get a duet going in one of our future courses here. Anyway, let me take off live so it's not disturbing to you, and we'll get underway. Okay. Welcome to this first module. My name is Paul Zucker. I've been planning director for many years, and since 1982 had my own consulting practice, working with about 170 cities and counties around the country. We've been in 32 states trying to help them with their planning and development processes. One thing I want to point out, we may have 1 or 2 clients of our clients taking this course, so I want to be a little careful with our clients. We teach best practices, and what you're going to see in these 6 modules we consider best practices. However, they may not fit your own community. So for all of you in this course, you're going to have to do some interpreting as to how they're best going to relate to your specific situation. We're going to start with perhaps one of the toughest, most important topics, which is setting the strategic direction for your department. We often do this by talking about setting your mission and vision. Now, if you're hoping in this hour and a half to come out of this, and with my having set your mission and vision for you, you're going to be disappointed, because it's really not something I can do. What I'm going to do is showing you a bunch of examples, show you what to do and not to do, and then you're going to have to struggle with this. So the mission and vision, nothing's harder for an organization than setting the vision, purpose, mission. Nothing's more important than accomplishing this task. To do so requires hard mental work, time, trial and error, and even failure. And most of you have probably got something you're now using. The question is, how effective is that? And you'll get some ideas about that as we progress this morning. In cartoon fashion, I want to report on that mission and vision. The cartoon says poppycock, but obviously we think it's very important. Here's two people talking about mission. Oh, we lost half of my slide. What they're saying is it's a dirty little secret. Most executives cannot articulate the objective, scope, and advantage of their business in a simple statement. If they can't, neither can anyone else. And take a closer look at that slide, because it should look like two people you know. And we're in the political season, so this is from last political season. So we've got Sarah Palin here whispering to Glenn Beck. And they're probably not talking about mission vision, but hopefully they would be. Well, let's take a closer look at the mission and vision. Why is this important? Well, if you don't know where you're going, how would you know if you got there or not? We see this all the time. A lot of customers complain about it takes too long to get permits out, but if you don't have a performance standard, how can you measure what you're doing? So you've got to know where you're going, then you can measure. So that's number one. And here's shows you measurement. The current phrase for this is a balanced scorecard. That's the jargon. So you've got to be able. That's number one. Dealing with diminished resources, and actually business is picking up for most of you, but you certainly have increased work, and your elected officials probably asking you to do more with less. And to do that, you've got to have a real clear notion about your vision. Faced with failing businesses, most leaders tighten the purse strings, take strict control over the organization, and strategy first. And it's that strategy that we're talking about. But your culture, Peter Drucker used to say, culture eats strategy for breakfast. So a clear mission and vision is the essential part of setting your organization's culture. Here's some more thoughts on why mission and vision are important. Dealing with increased workload without increased resources, a new age of competition requires a clear notion of what is important. It's necessary for empowerment. Now, empowerment we're going to talk a lot about during this course, but that's the current notion about how to be more productive and how to have happy employees. But employees can't be empowered, motivated, and inspired without a clear mission or glue to hold things together. So very, very critical. In the private sector, vision-driven companies perform 8 times better than their competition. I like to practice everything I teach in this course in my own business and in my own private life. So I have a financial advisor, but what I have done, I took a piece of my retirement account and decided what are the vision-driven companies that are in the stock exchange, and put a piece of my portfolio into those companies. And generally, I'm slightly outperforming my financial advisor. So I think this is actually an accurate statement. Find out what brings you together as a department or division. It may be values, vision, or set of motions. articulate this sense of unity well, and the department will follow. Look for the heart of your organization. At the heart of every great organization is a clear sense of purpose. Now, effective leaders help establish the vision mission, set standards for performance, great focus and direction for collective efforts, and convince staff to follow the vision mission. Now, I've deliberately got a mistake on this slide, and all of you, I want to get you familiar with the chat box in lower left-hand side of your screen. So let's see if you can figure out a mistake on this list. Just type into your chat box, and if not, I'll find it for you, but I'd like to give you just a minute to see whether you can find it. There's one word on here. Shannon Allen, convinced staff is error. Say more about that, Shannon. What would you say convincing them? Are you suggesting you simply don't have to convince them? I'm not certain what you're driving at. Let me show you the word that, this is the word that I was thinking of. Help establish a vision. And if you're the division head or you're the manager, let me put that back up again. I didn't mean to erase it so quick. This is the word I'm interested in, because your job is just not to help establish a vision and mission. Your job is to create the vision and mission. And Shannon says to inspire, absolutely. But I'm going to push this pretty hard, that the planning director particularly, but I think also the division heads have to establish the vision and mission for your division or for your department. And it puts the responsibility right on you. I'm going to try to illustrate this a little bit more. And I have some students don't buy into this, but I feel strongly about this. So let me keep going and see if I can convince you. I like your mission and vision, but not as much as I like my mission and vision. But it's the director's mission and vision that's going to be the important thing. And here's your inspiring, Shannon. Now we will sing out of the planning department. And there you are out front directing the choir of your department. Or some of your staff may feel they've lost their mission or vision. Here's something that one of my students, one of my courses was a fire chief, and he was changing jobs. And when he changed his new job, this is what he wrote and said to me. Well, I'll let you know, when I heard you speak in South Padre Island a couple of months ago, you mentioned something about vision statements and mission statements that really rang a bell. You went to your main topic quickly, but when you mentioned that the mission should come from the leader and not a committee, I completely agreed. When I got my new job as fire chief, I interviewed members of our department, talked with members of our community. When I felt I had enough information down, I set down the task of forming a vision and mission statement. I feel that most of those that I have seen are mission statements are way too long and hard to follow. But mine seems to work, and it's now guiding our entire department. So I thought that was a good illustration of what I'm talking about. Now, to help you remember during this course, we're going to have a number of little crutches to help you. And when we're talking about vision and mission, we use a term called the northbound train. And here it is. And I thought I had my train whistle, but this is my first of the webinars, and my train whistle's disappeared. So you'll have to imagine that. But northbound train's a good shorthand for mission vision. So what are we after here? Now, this could be a mission, what we do, a vision, our ends, values, a means, aspirations, principles, purpose, philosophy, beliefs, core values. Most planners like to get very detailed. I just kind of smash all these together. And what are we trying to do here? Where are we going? What's our purpose? And then how do we align everybody to follow that? How do we get there? That's it, kind of in shorthand. However, you want to get into more detail on this, there's some good reading. Here's a book that I think is pretty good called Strategic Thinking. And then here's an author that picked up the whole topic, northbound train. It's interesting because I used to teach a 30-hour management course where we taught the northbound train, and Albrecht was in one of our courses, and shortly thereafter he comes out with his book called The Northbound Train. I didn't invent the term. The author that did invent it, I think, was not too happy with Albrecht, but it's still a pretty good little book. Now, what happens if you've got somebody in your staff that's got a southbound ticket? Well, we can't guarantee going north is better than going south, but what we can say to them is the chance of you achieving your objectives in this organization is not very good because we're going north. So you might want to find an organization that would like your southbound ticket. Now, unfortunately, this may affect some of you directly also. You may want to go north, but you're in an organization that's going south, and it's really hard to turn a train around. So that may be a message for you about your future in this organization. I want to emphasize again the leader's role. It's the leader who must choose the train. The clarity of meaning and direction throughout the organization can never be any greater than it is at the top. And if the top's not setting it, then the organization can kind of flounder a bit. But keep in mind, eventually, of course, the northbound train must be everybody's idea and must inspire, as Shannon has suggested. So it must be more than one person's idea. It must be everyone's idea in the final analysis. But the director's got to be the leader here to get this thing going. Now, there are 5 questions that can help you in determining your northbound train. What are we here for? Why do we exist? Our purpose and mission. And what's our long-term destination? What do we want to be? What beliefs and principles will guide us on the journey? How we behave? And this I think is very important. This is where your values come in. What will our game plan be? What's our strategy for achieving this? And how will we monitor our progress and implement the plan? And that's the balanced scorecard. That's your measurement systems. Now, I can't answer these questions for you, and we certainly couldn't answer them in this webinar. It would take much more time, but we can play with them a bit and see how they may work. And as we go through the course this morning, you're going to see lots of ideas, and it's a matter of you're picking some of those ideas that you think will work for you. So let's start with the first one, the mission purpose. What would be some of the things that you might think about here? Well, what business are you in? So if you say we're in the planning business, I'm not certain that's quite goes far enough. I would go a little bit further and say we're in the business of building a better community. Much better than simply saying we're in the planning business. So what's our mission and purpose? Well, you might say to preserve and create a better place. I see that in a lot of mission statements that I'm seeing. Better place to live, work, and recreate. A sustainable community, very popular these days. Physical health of the community. So those are some thoughts. Now, how about vision? What are some of the thoughts we might come up with on vision? Some say the best planning department in the state of or the county of. You might even say in the country, but that's obviously a pretty strong aspiration. And the best department in the city of a can-do department. We see some places using that phrase. Now I've got a whole bunch of them that I've sort of collected from different people, and some of these might stimulate you. To make the city tolerable to live in, the basic common denominator. There is to design a city where you can raise a child towards a common goal. That was, Eplin used to be the Atlanta planning director. Promoting a wider range of choice for Cleveland residents. Krumholtz was the big pusher of social justice. We decided that fiscal balance would be our overall goal and the cornerstone of our comprehensive planning program. That was out of Milwaukee. Less is enough really where it's at. And that was the phrase that was used in Portland for a while. I think it's pretty much been dropped now, but it seemed to work over time. The overriding goal has two perspectives, neighborhood stability and economic vitality. That was out of St. Paul. Here's some other thoughts. And again, these are just to help stimulate you and get you thinking about your own organization. The answer people, I've had one organization use that. Good process, good product. Again, that was out of Portland. Imagine a great city. That was out of Denver. Our objective is to make this a better place. Enforcing rules and regulations may be comforting, but it's not our prime objective. I love that one, by the way. And I'd like to see some of you pick up that thought. Ask me why. To prosper by creating environments that people enjoy. This is out of a consulting firm. So these are just thoughts that hopefully can stimulate you. Work hard, be kind, dream big, no excuses. Now, this is an interesting phrase because San Diego's got one of the biggest school systems in the United States, and when the last principal or the superintendent left, instead of going for a national search, they reached down into the organization and promoted one of the principals as their superintendent. And she started right off with this phrase, work hard, be kind, dream big, no excuses. And that's sort of the driving force that she's using to run the department. She's been very successful, by the way, also. I'm taking this job because I want to save public education in America. Boy, that's a big mission goal. Okay, what are we here for? Why do we exist? And we did the vision. Now, values. It could be listen to our customers, treat customers and coworkers with respect, honest opinions, being problem solving. I like return phone calls and emails the same day. Most of my clients won't accept that, but that's what I consider to be best practices. Then strategy. What will our game plan be? Develop good plans and ordinances, clear, concise, free of jargon, have performance measures for development processing, develop a paperless office. Those of you that are division rather than planning directors can pick up some thoughts from some of these. Then the balanced scorecard, how will we monitor our progress? So here we can use customer surveys, we can measure development performance, and did your plans get adopted? And you're going to see all of these in future sessions of this course. Well, let's take a look at a mission. Here's a typical one. I'll just stop for a second and let you read this. So we're going to do a few little surveys this morning. So this is our first survey. I want you to tell me whether you think this is a good mission statement or not. So let's see if I can get my survey system working. Okay, so you should be able to vote here. Is this a good mission statement or not? And see if we can get all of you voting. I know some of you are on several on one computer, so you'll probably only be able to vote once, but I've got 9 of you, but I've only got a couple of you voting, so I'd like to get a few more of you voting on this as possible. So let me bring this up and share it with you. My office manager may have to tell, oh, here we go, end voting, so you can see. Hopefully that will come up on your screen. And we didn't have a lot of you voting, so as we go through the course, we do some more of these. I hope to get a few of you more participating. But it's sort of a split here. Some of you thought it was good, some of you didn't. My own view on a mission statement like that is, let's see, let's back, here it is again. I see a lot of these like this, and if you need to do that for your budget or maybe for just general public consumption, that's all right. But in my experience, it doesn't have the guts you need for what you're doing in your organization. Here's another one. Our mission is the preservation and promotion of quality of life for all residents of the county through proper planning, land use ordinances, construction codes, housing rental assistance programs. All right, that's a shorter one, should be easier to vote. Let's do a poll on that one. See if you think that's a good or bad one. All right, I'm getting a few more voting this time. It's going to come up, no is going to be the winner, and see if anybody wants to comment as to why you think this is not a good one. I'll bring it back up again. Here's the results of that little poll, but let's go back to this. Anybody want to type in the chat box your thoughts about this? You know, you could take something like this and almost paste it on every department in the United States. That's the problem I have with it. If you want to be that generic, yeah, this simply lists the functions in the department. Yeah, if you want something generic, I can write it for you. Here it is. Work hard, do a good job, we're a team, the customer's king. There you go. Here's your generic mission statement. And if you're a planner, we'll put some words around that. Our agency will ethically provide a complete range of services to meet the developing new approaches using new technologies while simultaneously enhancing our employees' lives, providing a superior return to our taxpayer. Not very effective. Here's a private sector one. in cartoon fashion. Very clear, very direct, used a few words. One of the big national companies in their publications had these values. So these were values for a big national company. Now I'm going to do another survey. Be patient. I've only got 4 surveys in here this morning. Does this sound like a good organization? Communication, respect, integrity, excellence, values for this national company. Sound like a good organization? All right, well, yes is the winning vote on this one. However, I want to make a point about this. So this sounds good, but let me tell you what this organization was. This was Enron. And so what did Enron prove? If you're going to say things like this, then you've got to act that way. So the big message, whatever you have in your mission, vision, value statements, if you don't act that way, you've got a double problem because you've got a believability problem. We often see this. You walk into a typical city manager's office, there's a vision statement for the city on the wall. And the question is that the way the place really operates or not? And often it's simply not. I see that in planning departments also. So you want to be very careful with this. If you're going to get into this, you've got to believe it and you've got to act that way. Now, what's the problem we see with a lot of these statements? They're vague, fluffy platitudes, simplistic statements of the obvious. And if you can avoid those, it's going to help you. Now, the former chairman and creator of Southwest Airlines, there he is. Those of you that have flown Southwest Airlines or read anything about management literature, you'll know that they are famous for having a very clear mission and vision. He says everyone's looking for a formula in business, but it's not a formula. It's got to be emotional, spontaneous, and from the heart. And Southwest Airlines has managed to get their people to buy into the direction they're trying to do. Here's another example. I was doing a study for the San Diego Housing Commission. And as part of this study, they asked me to look at their mission and vision. Normally, we're not asked to do that, but in this case, they specifically wanted it. So here is their mission and vision. Mission of the Commission is strive and assure every San Diegan the opportunity for an affordable home in a suitable living environment. Now, whether you think this is a good statement or not, the interesting thing about this, the staff really seemed to understand this. And the goal of the commission was to build more houses, build more housing, build more housing. Now, as part of this, however, we brought in a peer panel of outstanding housing directors from around the country. One of them was from my own home state, Nebraska, the director in Omaha, Nebraska. And as we were discussing this with them, he said, let me show you my mission statement. So this was his mission statement. Mission of the Omaha Housing Authority to provide good housing to low and moderate income people and to provide its residents with the tools that they need to become economically independent through empowerment programs. Housing will become the gateway to opportunity. Now, I'm not going to ask you to vote which one of these you think is better, but what I want you to do is look at these and use the chat box and see if you can see the difference. So let me go back to the first one. And this one, their goal was to build housing, build housing, build housing. That was their goal. But this one, what was their goal? See if anybody wants to help me out here in the chat box. You see the difference? Okay, a couple of you are typing. I don't know if we're having problems because your typing is not coming up on my screen. Oh, here we go. Omaha's striving to hit an emotional chord. I agree. The first one's too vague. It is vague, but the interesting thing is the staff seem to understand their big goal is to build housing, build housing, build housing. But there's another, and again, I'm not trying to judge which is better. What I'm trying to get you to see is how clarity or a different mission can change the way that organization operates. Shannon says Omaha includes teaching, yes, but it includes something else. And here's the word. This is the big thing they're doing in Omaha. So if you wanted to say this in some fashion, San Diego's to build housing, build housing, build housing. Now, Omaha may be building housing, but their goal is to get you out of public housing. And at least that's the way he interpreted it for us. And so, totally different program. You can argue which is better, but the main thing is to see that they're quite different. Okay, now here's another way to look at it. And here we are. I want to get you in the chat box. I don't know if anybody speaks French or can read this. This is out of the old management literature. Some of you may have seen this before. See if anybody can come up with this in the chat box. I don't see anybody typing. Well, I'll help you out. What it says is, this is not a pipe. So what is it? Well, it's a picture of a pipe. Let's go back. What is this? This is not a mission. This is simply a picture of the mission. The mission's what's in the hearts and minds of the staff in the organization. By the way, when I've taught these in a live setting and actually bring up, I'd usually put it on the board and then have the director, the planning director, describe what he or she thought about the mission. And the interesting thing, even though it's pretty generic like this one, the planning director usually brings it to life. And so what we're after eventually is that this mission, value, direction is in the guts of the organization and affects the way people act. So this illustration is simply to remind you that bottom line, it's just not those words, it's how well those words are being used. Okay, so here's a few more questions that you might want to ask to see if I can help you along. Some of these may fit you, some of them may not. Northbound train issues. In your development activities, are you a regulator or a problem solver? And I see that's a big issue in the organizations we consult with. My personal view is your staff should be problem solvers, uh, but we often see they resort to simply being regulators. Okay, let's try another one. Are you really planning, or are you merely collating regulatory requirements from other departments? And typically, you've got multiple departments involved in the development process, and I see some planning departments, all they're doing is cut and pasting from other departments, but that's not really planning. And the same thing would be true if you're doing your plans, how you're working with those other departments. Here we are in long-range planning. Are you partnership with other departments, or are you planning for them? And in my view, what you should be doing is the partnership. Are you concerned about community participation in government or alienation from government? And I think you should be concerned about community participation. Now, I know one or two of you in this course have so much community participation that you'd really like to have less of it. I'm not certain I would be pushing for less, but finding a way to some way work with it in a more productive way. We recently finished study for Austin, Texas. We had over 600 community organizations in Austin, and they were very active, but the key was finding the right way to mold them into the process. But you decide for your community. And then in long-range planning, you focus on affecting current decisions. I've always felt, if you want a 20 or 30-year plan, that's fine. But unless they're actually impacting what's happening currently, why it's not a very effective document. Do you believe in getting votes? Now, some planners just pride themselves in producing these big fat reports. We're going to cover politics in the last session. It'll be long after the national elections, so we won't get confused with that. But do you believe in getting the votes? Now, I happen to think a planning director should be concerned for that. But again, you decide. Again, as I started this, I can't set your mission and vision. You have to decide as a director, what kind of department or division are you running? And these are simply questions to help you figure that out. And then, are you doing enough long-range planning? And again, we see, let's see, I'm trying to give you an example here. I worked off and on through the years for Louisville, Kentucky, and Louisville merged their county and city, so it's a very big organization. And then they split their planning department to long-range and short-term planning. And they asked me to come in and work a little bit of their current planning activities. But I was curious about how that was working. So as part of that project, I said, so how many planners are in the long-range planning now that you split it? And they said four planners. And knowing the size of Louisville and the complexity of Louisville, it was clear to me right off the bat they were not doing enough long-range planning. So again, this is something you look at for your own organization. Now, your direction has to be so vivid that you randomly woke up one of the employees in the middle of the night and asked him or her, where are we going? He or she could still answer in a half asleep stupor. Now, I know you're going to critique me for this or do it in your chat box. I'm pushing it a little bit, but here we are. You woke them up in the middle of the night. We're building a better, sustainable community in partnership with developers and citizens. Now, there's some truth to this. Each staff member may not be able to recite every piece of your mission and vision, but they need to know enough that it drives them in the way they're working in the organization. Now, many of you these days, departments are involved in the building permit function. So I was doing a retreat for a bunch of building inspectors, and the director of the department gave me this mission vision, and I'm actually going to ask you the survey on this one as to whether you think it's a good or bad one. There was an interesting thing about this one, though. When I put it up, there were about 30 or 40 building people in the room, and they all looked at it, and they had never seen it before. So regardless of what you think of it, it was not effective because the director had come up with this, but that's as far as it went. So see if you finished reading that. Let's do a little survey. You think this is a good one or not? Here we go again. Is this a good statement? Good statement or not? Not getting a high percent of those here answering this survey. Let's see how many. Well, according to my program here, we got more of you here than are participating. So maybe you're just trying to make up your mind. Let's end the voting on this. So most of you say no. 50% of those that voted think this is not a good statement. But let me go back. Again, you don't have to agree with everything I'm doing, but I'm trying to make some points here. Now, for those of you dealing with building, let's take a look at this. The purpose, and whether you call this a mission or not, I happen to think this is a very good mission statement. The purpose of building, changing from a regulatory to creating partnerships with the development community. This is a great word for building. Those of you managing building, trying to get into partnership. Although I've worked with a lot of building departments that don't accept that. They see themselves mostly as regulatory people. But I think partnership. So partnership is a key word. And here we change from an enforcement to customer service. And here's that word again I introduced earlier, problem solving. So I actually think this is a pretty good one. I think for building, this is some better words. Now I might want to shorten it and do some things and tweak it for my organization. But I think in many ways this is better than I've seen for a lot of planning departments. So let's look at some other examples. Okay, now this, I did a lot of consulting for the City of Los Angeles planning department, and for a while was worked for the director herself, and this is what she came up with. Do real planning, build an efficient and effective department, develop innovative solutions, and engage the community. Now, you maybe would have to know some of the history of the LA Planning Department, but having worked there for a long time, this was dynamite. These four really set a totally different direction for that department. And it was very effective. This was Gail Goldberg, that some of you may know. Excuse me. So that was very effective for quite a while. Interestingly, though, enough. At one point, when LA politics changed and went a totally different direction, uh, Gail, I guess she resigned, but she was actually pushed out, and the new politicians were less enamored with these points. But I felt for what she was trying to do, these were absolutely excellent. Another place that's been pretty successful. These are things I picked up, which I thought were pretty useful. Build rural better. This was out of Alberta, Canada, and I had actually built on a project for them that I was not selected, but in putting that response to RFP together, I saw these words. I thought these were excellent. How it actually works in that community, I don't know, but I really liked it. Another one of our clients was McKinney, Texas. They had this phrase, unique by nature. And McKinney was clearly trying to be different than those of us. Well, we got 11 states participating here today, but those of us out of California, of course, always kind of look our nose down on Texas a little bit. But McKinney was trying to be something very unique, and they had came up with this phrase, which I thought was very helpful and meaningful. Another one that's had a good reputation is Charlotte, Mecklenburg County, North Carolina, and they use vision, mission, and guiding principles. So they have three kinds of statements. So here's their vision. We will be a public planning organization, puts customer service first, model for management excellent, works to challenge and motivated professionals, contribute towards shaping as a community of choice. It could be a little generic, but again, when I talk to people there, it's pretty effective. Here's their mission: economic vitality, environmental integrity, et cetera, et cetera. Overall, I think sometimes your statements need to be short, but then I think you need words to back them up to make them meaningful. At some point here, I guess it's coming up next. I'll show you the one I use for my own company. And you may think it's a little long, but it pulls out some key main points. Oh, I'm sorry. Before I do that, I think my guide here, I slipped. Here's some phrases from cities, key city slogans, and these may give you some ideas too. So Baltimore, a great place to grow. Buffalo for real. Burton, Michigan, small town, big heart. Chicago, second to none. Maybe they'll change their phrase now that they won the World Series. Colorado Springs, live it up. Every city has a soul. By the way, when we did Austin, I don't think Austin's on my list here, but we just did a big study for them. They had the phrase, keep Austin crazy, or that's not quite the phrase, but they used it all the time and it was very effective. Modesto, family owned and operated. New Ulm, come see what's brewing. They're a big beer town, German town. Uncommonly patriotic, that's Sumter, South Carolina. It's a big military town. Ithaca, Renaissance City. Okay, here's mine. That's what I had wanted to get into. So clients are forever. So I got that little short phrase starts it off, and then I've got some writing to put some meat around the bones here. Then we have a three-part, growing fun employees. So we're committed to our employees from a training and how we work together as a team. And then the fourth one, finding a better way. And that's really the theme song of our entire organization. We use the Japanese word Kazan. And so those three words, I think they're very effective in the way we run our organization. I'm going to come back to those later, and I want to show you how they work in the real world. I'll just leave those on the screen just a minute if you want to glance at them. Now, John Welch, who was the renowned head of General Electric, and then his wife, Susie Welch, for a long time were writing articles in Business Week, and you would send a question in, and they would answer it. So here was a question that came in them. Our company is growing fast. We've started to have trouble organizing ourselves. What's the best way to go from a small company to a big one? Or for those of you that have been involved with cutbacks in government, you might be going from a big one to a small one or vice versa. But their answer to this was very interesting. Now keep in mind, this is one of the outstanding CBOs in the United States, at least according to Business Week and a lot of other business magazines. So what did they say? Begin by going back to the basics. What's your mission and values? So you use that really to address everything in your organization. Well, here's some other tips about how you go about this. Separate the thinking from the wordsmithing. Work out the basic idea first and then have somebody put some compelling words around the idea. Now, as city planners, my experience, most of us, we pull out our yellow pad and that's where we start. So we start writing down something before we've really thought it through. And, oh, I got somebody in the Dropbox. My microphone's been cutting in and out. Amber, my office manager, I'm sorry about that. I wish somebody had caught that earlier.
I don't think it's just your son. Mine's fine.
Amber says it's going through fine on hers.
Is anybody else having trouble?
Is anybody else having trouble, or is it Deb was having trouble? Is it something maybe with your Shannon's hearing fine?
I think it's her speakers then.
It's happening via phone connection, and also we've tried both. Shannon's okay, my office manager's okay. Anybody else fine here? So it sounds like, Deb, it's something on your end. Sorry about that. But if you don't get it fixed between now, if you're doing the full series between now and next webinar, you might want to call Amber at my office, and she's pretty good at this, and see if she can help you out. So anyway, I appreciate you bringing that to my attention, because if the sound's not working, why it's tough to get anything out of this. So here's my suggestion to you. So you work out the basic idea first, and then have you or somebody put some compelling words around it. You're not ready to start drafting the language until you've settled on the driving idea, the organizing principle behind the way you want to do business. And certainly that's what I tried to do in my own company. So now when you've done this, you've got to sell it. So even though I come back again and again and again saying, you as the director, either of your division or of the department, this is top of the list for you to do. Now, obviously, if you're a division head and not the department head, whatever you're doing needs to be consistent with the department director's vision or mission. But sometimes you may need a little more detail that works well for the function that you have. Irrespective of that, once you have it, or once you feel comfortable with what you have, then you've got to sell it. And obviously, you want all your staff on the northbound train. And later in the course, I'll show you an easy way to get the southbound ticket people off your train. That's in third session, I think, third or fourth session. So these are ways you sell. Now, a big one is right here. If you look at a department store like Nordstrom or Southwest Airlines, or you pick up any management book these days, chances are those two companies are going to pop up. And what you're going to see are stories about that those companies have used to reinforce their mission. I fly Southwest a lot, and it's Southwest in their letters to the editor in their little magazine. There'll always be letters that reinforce their mission about how they serve their customers. So let me try a little story here, and I wanted another survey. I don't think we got it up here. Maybe I can just use a yes or no from one of my earlier ones. So here's a story to show you something about my own mission and vision for Zucker Systems. So I had a small housing contract, $3,000 contract for a city. And about 6 months after my planner said she had finished the work, I found out she had not billed the client. So we sent them a bill for the $3,000. They called me and said, well, they didn't really get quite what they wanted. So now, based on my mission and vision, what should we do about this? Anybody want to participate here in the chat box? This would be a good one to work on. So we said, well, what can we do? We'd like to make this good. And they said, well, 6 months, some time sort of passed us by, but we don't want to pay you $3,000. So I said, well, how about we just make it $2,000? And they said, no, we'll pay you $1,000. So now the question, and I wanted to do a survey, and to my office manager, it's probably my mistake not getting this one up as a survey this morning. But my question to you all, you can do it in your drafts. So should I accept the $1,000? Should I hold out for the $3,000? Or what do you suggest I do? I'm the consultant. I've got an unhappy client here. They didn't want me to do additional work to make it good. So Christopher says, take care of the client. Okay, how am I going to do that, Christopher? I already said I'll take less than the $3,000. So show how you met the deliverables with the client, then have a discussion. Possibly, but Shannon, I'm not certain that's consistent with my mission. Offer to make the work meet the client's expectations. Yeah, that's where we started, and they were just ready to move on. 6 months had passed. So now, if your mission and vision is really working, when I hang up the telephone, we start to have a conversation in the office amongst us about this problem. And remember, let's see if I can quickly go back to, here we go. Clients are forever. How are we going to keep this client forever with this discussion going on? That's the one of our three that I think created the biggest issue. And so here's what we came up with. We said, okay, you can send us $1,000 and we'll settle for that. However, we know you've got a nonprofit housing. This was a housing contract, a housing, a nonprofit going, and we're going to make $1,000 donation to your nonprofit housing company. Wow, the whole tenor of the conversation began to change. So we basically zeroed out that contract. Now, how did it fit with our clients forever mission? I now have had 3 sole source new contracts with that client. So we were consistent with our mission, and it's served us well in the end. But now that story for me is worth, it's really paved in gold, because it begins to say to my employees, this is what we mean when clients forever. This is what we mean by customer service in our mission. So once you get it clear, then if you can find some stories to reinforce it, wow, that's really what you're after. So now the northbound train, it's like a 3-act play. We want to clarify the northbound train. So that's your job, coming up with that northbound train. Then you ceaselessly talk about and you model it. And then you make real structural changes based on the mission and values that you've set. And that puts it all into operation. You got to be consistent in selling it. You got to mobilize your people around it. A little benign neglect can destroy a culture almost overnight, or you're acting inconsistent with that mission, which is setting the culture. So you got to be very careful. The ultimate test of any statement, vision, mission, value, philosophy, business direction, is its effectiveness in mobilizing people to a common purpose. Summing it up, this is one of the hardest things you need to do. Now, if you don't think it's been well done in your organization, I don't think you're going to leave this webinar and this afternoon come up with it. It's going to take a little more work than that. It's going to take a little bit of trial and error. It's going to take some real head work to come up with this. So I believe this when I say it's the hardest thing you need to do. And then it's your responsibility. And so far, none of you have totally taken me up on that. In a minute here, I'm going to try to open up to more discussion and see if we can kick some of these ideas around. Then you use a northbound train as a communication device. You can just say to a staff member, are you being consistent with our northbound train? Do you know what the northbound train is? A great little, or a great term that you can use to remind yourself about the northbound train. Then, as we said, separate the thinking from the wordsmithing, and then sell, 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 sell. your mission and the northbound train. Then you can celebrate. I don't think they would ever agree on an updated mission statement. Okay, well, that's it. That's a tough session, the first one. You're going to find that the coming ones, I'm going to give you a lot more specific ideas, but loaded with ideas here. But now you're going to have to take those home and try to interpret them. And those of you that were here during the Old Chunk of Coal song when we started this morning, we want you to become diamonds, management diamonds. So let's see if we got some questions. If the chat box is too hard, this is a new piece of software we're using. Now, I'm supposed to have a way to let you also go to audio, which might be easier for getting your questions. But Amber, if you want to come up and show me, I don't see how we're going to get everybody's mics on. But in the meantime, let's see if you got some questions or things you want to discuss a little bit further. Put them in the chat box if you would. I could read it. Everything was so clear you don't have questions, but I don't. Okay, above the chat box, there's a little smiley face. Oh, there it is.
That's good then.
We're trying to figure this out for you, how we can turn
That's
your
what they
mic.
have to do. And if anybody raises their hand, we can turn on their mic. We can't turn on everybody's mic.
Oh, okay. If you wanna ask a question, you hit this little smiley above your chat box. And it'll show you raising your hand, and then we can turn your mic on for you. So I'd be happy to do that if somebody would like to. We can go back and forth here a little bit. Verbally might be easier, or put your questions into your chat box. Okay, Deb, I see you have it on the chat box. Do you have any ideas on how you can keep the department moving forward in your goals when you have political leadership that is reducing staffing and cutting your budget? Okay, you're going to see this clearly in some of the future sessions. So it implies, your statement implies that your community is simply not supportive of planning. They're not willing to put the money into it. So it may be your community from a planning perspective has got they're going south and you're trying to go north. How you sell your program, that's important. We're going to see that in some of our future things. They keep cutting your budget. In one of the later sessions, I'm going to deal with budgets quite a bit. And increasingly in our consulting practice, we're usually hired to clean up the development process. But in doing that, I'm often looking in detail at the budget and trying to figure out, okay, where are we going to get the money to do this? One of our current clients started a webinar, and I'm looking very closely at that city's budget process and working to figure out how we're going to get more resources because I think they're short-staffed. But final analysis, Deb, you're going to have to somewhat sell whatever the product is you're trying to sell. I also have a feeling about the difference between long-range planning and current planning. And of course, those of us that have planning degrees, we thought we went to school to become long-range planners. My view about planning departments, however, is politically, you have to get your current planning processes in shape. You got to get the community accepting them, the timelines, what have you. And then if that's true, you can use that to build political support for your long-range programs. Another way to do it, and I'm drifting into other parts of the seminar, but find an idea that you really want to push, but you try to find one of your elected officials that agrees with that idea, and then let that official be the sponsor and push that. Also, as you'll see later in the course, for your long-range planning, I believe in doing a work program and showing, listing the programs you think the community needs, show how much staffing you need for them, and let the elected officials look at those and often have them adopt them. In my experience, when I've used that technique, we end up getting extra resources, because if you show you're not equipped to do those projects but they want them done, then they're going to have to come up with some more resources. So there are various ways to do this. I hate to say it, bottom line, you could end up feeling the community is going to go south and you can't get that train turned around, so you're going to have to find a community that wants to go north. Tough way to say it, but on the other hand, I would say virtually I've done 170 cities and counties now, and I don't think I've ever found one that feel they've got all the resources they need. So as a planning director, figuring this out, this is high on your list to get the proper resources you need to carry out that mission and goal. And you may have to, the lack of resources may impact the kind of mission and goal that you think you can actually set for your department. So that's the other twist on this whole notion. Anyway, real good question, Deb. I wish you well. By the way, on any of these things, after this course, as you know, on our website, we have the management doctor, and you can ask me questions, and we answer them on the internet. But I'd also encourage you, if you want to discuss some of these in person, you can always call me direct. My cell phone is the number listed on our website, and I'd be happy to kick some of these things around more than we can do in this webinar format. So keep that in mind also. Okay, Deb, let's see if we've got anybody else that's got a question or a comment. Kevin, will you provide the slides after the presentation? We do send you I guess I'll call it a handout. It does not have every single slide in it, but it does have key text slides. And so those will come out to you. Amber, if you want to comment, when are those coming out? Probably within a week or the next few days, you'll get those in your email. Amber says she's hoping to get them out by tomorrow, so that's good. So you'll get those shortly. The interesting thing, we tend not to put them out in advance because I don't want you focusing on them. I want you in longhand, I guess, making notes as you go. It's sort of called a double entry learning system. So I hate to bog down by having those out in advance. I know some of you probably would prefer to do it the other way around, but that's the way we will be doing it. So you will get those shortly. I'd also encourage you, those of you that are going to struggle with this a little bit, if you come up with some ideas, share those with me, because this is a tough topic and we're all on sort of a learning curve. Can review a recording of this webinar, and our general answer is no, unless you've got some other ideas on this, Amber, because it's too hard to control this material once it's out in a recorded fashion. We do record the sessions, however. Occasionally, if we've had somebody through sickness or something else, we'll share it. But yeah, Amber says we usually only provide slides if you had issues with attending or while attending. So if your computer was down or something, we'll try to work with you. But normally we're not doing that. Amber says Deb, she's going to email you some information on your connection also. So hopefully that'll clear that item up for the future. Well, we're about out of time. Let's see if we've got anybody else that's got a question or comment that you want to share. I didn't get anybody volunteering to do a ukulele duet with me in a future session. I've been teaching people. I say I can teach anybody to do the ukulele in 5 minutes, but we won't try to do that over a webinar. But or if somebody's playing a guitar, that would work too. We can do a guitar ukulele duet for some future class. So you can email me if you don't want to put it on the. I was surprised the last time we did this, we had one student that said they were playing ukulele and we were going to do a duet, but we never got it put together. So we'll see how that happens for the future. Well, with no other questions, I think we will sign off, and I look forward to seeing at least some of you on next Thursday when we deal with customer service. And again, when we deal with customer service, you'll see how mission and vision come up again once you're doing that. So thanks for attending, and see you next time.